to USA Global TV. And hello to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio. I'm Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, and our show today is Talking Heads. If you're joining us for the first time, you may be wondering, what is a talking head? That's a great question. Talking heads are experts who come from around the world, and they have their own 30-minute show here on USA Global TV. And each of our shows is dedicated to a different talking head, and their show is at the same time and same day of the week. Our talking head today is Keegan Daly. This woman has such a special place in my heart because she's so authentic and real. She is someone who cares so deeply about other people, and it resonates in everything that she does. She's a holistic registered nurse. She's a counselor. She's a therapist. She's an educator. She's a Reiki master. She is an author and so much more. Let's bring her out. Welcome to the show, Jean.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jacqueline. And hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here again. Excuse me. This is my my seventh session in a series of 12, and all about you and me and all of us in how we can effectuate more holistic health in our bodies, our minds, and our spirits, because that is who we are. We are really a composition of body, mind, spirit, emotion, also our social environment, our financial environment, our family relationships, our other relationships with friends, with relatives, with lovers, with children, with everyone. And we
And
are
what a
really,
great time for you to present this lesson, Jean. So I'm going to go backstage and produce the show. And congratulations on episode 7. Take it away.
thank you. Thank you. Okay, so I welcome everyone who is watching and everyone who is listening. And I am really, really happy to be offering this information to you and my experiences with the information I'm delivering to you, because in my very best way, I am practicing what I am teaching to you. Sometimes it's really successful, and other times, when, as we know, stress really, really gets the best of us, we can falter, and we're not perfect as human beings. We're not. However, remember that inside of us, excuse me, it's allergy season for me, and maybe for some of you as well. Inside of us, there is a core, it's a spiritual core. It is who we really are. That is where our creativity is, that's where our soul is, that's where our spirit is, that's where we have the connection, the direct connection with our creator. Some people call that infinite design, some people call that infinite intelligence, some people call that God, some people call that divine source, some people call that the creator. Whatever you call that higher power that animates us through life, that power that breathes us, we are always connected to that, always. So you may hear me interchange the words God and creator and infinite source and infinite design. They all mean the same thing to me. And because I have had years and years and years in nursing, holistic nursing, hospice nursing, nursing with children, nursing with adolescents, nursing with adults, nursing with elderly, and have taught many, many, many students over the years, I am always careful to utilize those terms interchangeably, because who knows, the people that are listening to me, what their particular name is for that creative source that is within each of us. And I want to respect everyone's belief. So, today I want to talk to you about the meanings of stress, distress, and strain, and dis-ease, and how that leads to disease. So, you may remember, if you've listened to me before, since this is my seventh um, session, The definition of true health. So, true health means a lot more than being free of disease or free of aches and pains. True health actually means a state of well being in which a person's body, mind, spirit, emotions are in tune with and flowing rhythmically and harmoniously with the natural, cosmic, and social environment. And when there is easement in all those parts of us, that is the true definition of true health, that everything is flowing well. So you may have moments of that, days of that, weeks, months, maybe even years of that. However, because we are spiritual beings having this human experience, and right now, this human experience is pretty chaotic in the world, as we know. Um, you probably cannot hold on to that true health state of wellness for a long, long time. And that's part of what makes us human. We have ways to return to that state. So, maybe some of the ways I'm going to be teaching you over the next, how many, 5 weeks left, you may know already, and some you may not. I have some tricks up my sleeve here that I learned long ago in some protocols that were taught to me that are not real common, but they are very effective. So, let's start with stress. So, everybody knows that word, even children know that word. And one of my career parts is being a substitute school nurse in many different schools, different ages. Most of the time, when I'm sub nursing, I am working with children ages 4 to 7, and they are feeling the effects of stress. They cannot verbalize it the way you and I might as adults. However, they feel it and they come into the nurse's office all the time. Sometimes they just need a little rest. They need to know that they're safe. They need to know that they're loved. They need to know that they're cared about in the environment that they're coming from into school. It could be that they've had a hard time at home. It could be that, someone is sick at home. It could be that they're afraid. It could be they didn't sleep well. And that's true for all of us. Okay, so not just children, but I just wanted to point out that children do feel stress. And even though they don't really know the details of what's happening in our world, especially right now with the situation in Russia, Ukraine, they are still feeling that stress. Why? Because everything is energy. Thoughts are energy, feelings are energy. Every single thing that we can imagine is created of energy, and that has been proven through quantum physics. So you can find out a lot more about that if you, go online and look up quantum physics. Every single thing, and it's the way the energy is constructed. I know I've said this before, but it's so important to say it again. It's the way the energy is constructed. How are the frequencies of that energy managed? How are they put together to make something fluid, to make something solid, to make something airy, to make something a thought? So, in order to live in this world, we actually need to have stress. And the true definition of stress is maybe not what you think. Stress, in its simplicity, is the non specific response of the body to any demand on it, good or bad. So, if you're standing up and you're walking, you have stress in your muscles because that's what keeps you upright. That's what enables you to walk. So that the stress is the non-specific response to the body of the body to any demand placed upon it. Think about a room that has walls and beams that are holding up the ceiling, holding up the wall, the studs behind the wall that you see. All right, that's a stress which is necessary because otherwise you'd be falling and collapsing on you. So, not all stress is bad stress. And I hesitate to use the words bad, good, negative, positive because they they really are excuse me, misunderstood in a lot of ways. So I'm going to say, I told you about stress, distress. Okay, distress is what we're really feeling when we are upset, when we are just feeling really uncomfortable. Distress is the resistance to the demand placed on you by the way you think about it, actually. What's coming at you. So sometimes you may feel, like I do, that everything or everyone is just coming at you. You're needed here, you're needed there, you're called upon to do this, you're called upon to do that. You have schedules, you have deadlines. You want to be involved in so many things. And yet, there's only so much time in a day. And if you are not super, super organized with every single aspect of your life, you can be in distress, and that is not a put down to anyone or anything or any situation. It's that our life in this time right now on this earth is very distressful because of so many things going on. So long ago, when I was in nursing school, there was no such thing as a computer because that was in the 60s, and we handwrote everything. Now, the computer, which was supposed to make our lives easier, and in many ways it does, sometimes it does not. Sometimes there's problems with the computer. And so it delays you from getting on to the next thing, or it delays you from what you were, where you were supposed to be at a certain time. So that you're thinking about, oh my goodness, what if this doesn't get fixed? What if I can't get this done? And there are interruptions all the time. So the way you think about that and the way you react to that or respond to that makes a difference in the degree of distress that you have. Now, I always like to bring up, and I'm sure you've heard this somewhere before, many people have, that way back in the Neanderthal man times, um, distress was, as I'm explaining it, was very necessary because in order to get food for your family in those primitive days, you had to go out and you could be met by a lion or a tiger, and you had to really fend for your life. So your the brain in the back of your head, all right, you have different parts of your brain. So we're just going to talk about two parts today. The back brain or the stem brain that's connected to your spinal cord, that is the part of the brain that is called the reptilian brain, which has to do with fight or flight and automatic things, your heartbeat, your digestion, things that you don't have to think about. All right, they're just the cells in your body that are moving to keep you alive, that are moving to help you to just process being human. Okay, those are regulated by the back brain. Now, because emotions are very connected to our body, to our mind, we know that the caveman who would go out and try to get some food for his family had to be defensive because he could be attacked from anywhere. And if he saw an animal coming toward him, he had a club all the time. So he would either fight or he would run away until that animal went someplace else, or he would sometimes play dead in a hidden space. Okay, and they were all necessary. That was distress that that caveman was feeling, but that was necessary. That was necessary distress. Okay, to in order to survive. Nowadays, and then he would go back. So the danger would pass, and he would go back to, getting the food, getting his family fed, building the hut, whatever it was that he had to do. So the distress would go down, and he would be sort of in a much better, healthier place within himself. Now we have stressors that are not in any way, shape, or form like those stressors that the caveman, Neanderthal man, had to deal with. However, we have stressors now that they didn't even think about back then. So we have what I said before, deadlines and appointments and um, things that we must do and things that we must think about and plan for. And when those kinds of stressors elevate our distress to the point where our body now is reacting with an increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, increased cortisol, which is not a good thing. I mean, we need cortisol. However, it when the distress becomes so elevated and remains that way day after day after day, hour after hour after hour, sometimes weeks and months, years sometimes, that people stay on that level, that high level of distress. And all of these hormones in your body are just pouring out. That means that that back brain is in overdrive. And in order to calm that down, we need to pay attention to our front brain. Okay, that's the cerebral cortex, the front brain. That's our thinking brain. That's the brain where we make decisions, where we have logic, where we understand things from a logistical point of view. Now, there are other parts of the brain that have to do with emotions as well. However, I won't go there today. I just want to let you know that when there is a constant distress and elevation of that distress, that can lead to strain. And strain is the body's reaction to that distress. So, besides your heart racing, which can calm down for a minute, but it may never get back to the level that your body deserves and needs, you have increased muscle tension. You might get a headache. A lot of times, when, like for example, a patient one time in the hospital where she was going to have surgery on her neck, and that was serious surgery. She had three little girls at home. She had injured her neck severely, and she was holding her shoulders like this, just way up almost to her ears. She was so scared and so much in distress that her body was strained. Now all of her muscles in her back, muscles in her arms, all the way down to her hands, her stomach, everything was tightened and tensed to the point where she absolutely had a weakening of those muscles, and her body could not function because it was in this just high straight trying to run or flee or the same thing, run, flee, or hide or ignore this or just, just give up. And thankfully, we were able to get her to a place of more relaxation, allowing her to cry, allowing her to talk about her situation, allowing her to, there were things that I helped her do that I'm going to be teaching you in the next several weeks that are really modifiers of this distress. So it does not lead to strain and especially to sustained strain. We want to always recognize when are in a high level of stress, which becomes distress. To prevent strain, we know that we may feel that distress, and yet we need to know ways to come down from that high level and get this part of our brain working. And there are many things I will show you over the next couple of weeks in order to do that, to reduce that level of tension in your body, in your muscles, to reduce that level of distress and prevent the strain that can lead to disease. Now, I mentioned dis-ease. So, dis-ease is the precursor to disease. We know now from many, many studies that distress, even though they call it stress, I'm just wanting to make sure that you understand the difference. Um, so, you can call it stress. I mean, we're all used to saying that. It's actually distress. So, when that distress continues again and again, we might become used to that and not even feel like, oh no, I'm fine. I'm not in stress. I'm not in distress, which can absolutely not be true for you. You may have just gotten used to that. Okay, so you might say, oh yeah, I have a headache again. I get headaches all the time. Or yeah, my stomach is upset, but it'll just go away, without really discovering when it started and why it might have started and why you're actually holding on to it. Because in so many ways, we actually create our own reality. And I talked about that before. The one thing that you can control in your own life is your thought process. And if you don't remember what thoughts started that sustained distress or strain, then recognize how you're feeling. So if your stomach is tight or it's upset or your shoulders ache or your head is hurting or your back aches, think about what can I do to change that reaction in my body, and that will often lead you to remembering the thoughts you had or the situation that started this in the first place. And there are remedies for that. So dis-ease is just that. Dis-ease is before that headache turns into a migraine. Dis-ease is before that stomach ache or tight stomach turns into diarrhea or constipation or vomiting. That level of distress that can be dis-ease, we can modify that in many ways in order to prevent that muscle strain from becoming, imbalance and falling. So the other thing I want to interject right here is this attitude of getting older. Okay, a lot of people say, especially people my age, say, "Oh, it's just age. I'm just getting old." Well, first of all, I'm going to ask you to consider stop saying that, getting old. Instead, you can choose to say, "I am growing older in every day, in every way. I am growing older and more understanding of my body and mind and spirit and emotions connection." And so when you do that, you're actually giving yourself a gift. Okay, the gift of returning to the opposite of distress, which is relaxation. So think about the word lax. Okay, lax means easy, like, and is again. So relaxation. That's what you want to get back to. That is your actual true health self, which is inside of you, that is blocked by whatever's going on in your life, that is continuous or intermittently there again and again and again. It goes away for a little bit, it comes back. So we can manage this in a number of ways before the dis-ease becomes disease. We know that, and I think I started to say this before, we know that 95%, 95%, it might even be higher now, of cause of disease is stress related. Again, I'm saying stress, but it's distress related, where people don't recognize that they're starting in this movement of continuing that stress until it becomes distress, until it becomes strain, until they feel like, well, this is kind of normal. And you don't ever want to normalize that, okay? Because there's always a thought. And that thought that you can relate to, having started this chain reaction, can be changed because you have that power. And where's that power? It's right inside of you. That power is right inside. And to connect with that power and to listen to what that soul source, that creative power, that godness in you is saying, you need to get quiet. You need to make some quiet time. And we'll talk about that quiet time. We'll talk about what meditation really is and how to do it in a very simplistic way. Talk about all kinds of things as we go on with the next couple of weeks. So I do hope you will join me with that before I run out of time today. So again, the ability to, first of all, you may remember if you've been with me before that I talked about self responsibility. We are all responsible for ourselves. It does not help us to blame someone else. It's helpful to know why whatever is going on is affecting you in the way that it is. Okay, so the news these days is so very stressful, distressful, that maybe be aware of what's going on and contribute where you can, but don't watch it every day, all day, because that's going to lead to more and more distress within you and eventually strain. And then strain is dis-ease, and then it becomes disease, and then you don't feel well. So really self-responsibility, be compassionate with yourself. Okay, the word care is an acronym that I thought of, and I actually have it included in my book, which I published 4 years ago. And the title of my book is Reflections of a Seasoned Soul. It is my life story of how I got to where I am when it was considered very occult to be holistic. That word wasn't even used at that time. And my processes with all of this growing and learning and understanding and experiencing. So, in that book, I wrote the acronym for CARE, in my view. So, the C is compassionate, be compassionate with yourself. A is for authentic, be authentic, all right? Without judgment to yourself. Don't blame or put yourself down, just like, oh, yeah, that's right, I'm doing this again, and it's causing me to be distressed. So, how can I change that? And then that's the R for respectful. Okay. And then when you are compassionate, you're authentic, you really take self responsibility, you're respectful to yourself, then you are the E, empowering. Then you are empowered and you can better hear that voice inside of you. So we're running out of time. I have one more thing to say. That is something else I'll talk about on the next several times that we're together on Wednesdays. That we'll talk about the spectrum of love and fear. So the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is fear. So how to come out of fear, how to come out of distress, and come into love and appreciation for yourself and be responsible for yourself and just be in much better true health for a much longer amount of time. So thank you very much, everyone, and I'll see you next Wednesday, 4:30. Thank you.
Brilliant, Jean. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to discussing and debriefing with you, hopefully tomorrow.
Okay,
And
wonderful.
Jean, for people who want to get in touch with you, what's the best way and who should reach out to you?
Anyone who wants to know more, anyone who wants to know how I know what I know, how I falter in practicing what I know, and how I get back on track again. So J Life Spirit. It's on the. If you can't see it, you can hear me. The letter J Life Life Spirit at Comcast.net. You can also find me on LinkedIn under Jean Keegan Daly. You can find me on Facebook, and I'm also on Instagram. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.
And when you're not on all of those things, you're out there making people feel better in so
Yes,
many
do my
ways.
best. Doing
Well,
my
it was a
best.
great presentation, Jean, and you actually are glowing. So I hope that you enjoyed it as well.
I did. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank
Okay.
you, Jean. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yes. Okay. Bye. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. Please do reach out to Jean. She really is an incredible person. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Get to know her, whether it's on LinkedIn, Facebook, or contacting her at jlifespirit Comcast.net. Okay, we're going to sign off right now for another Talking Heads episode. So please, wherever you're watching us, you just stay there. I'm going to run to the other studio and we'll be right back. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jean. Talk to you soon.